I was still hooked to the Roman 4 when I heard the nurse say it to my husband, low enough that she thought I was asleep. "She's not the real mother." 4 words. I felt them land somewhere under my ribs, sharper than the stitches. My husband's voice, careful, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Someone flagged the chart," the nurse said. "Donor conception. It's noted right here." That part didn't even come from someone trying to hurt me. It came from a woman in scrubs reading a line in my file that was never supposed to matter to anyone but me and Marcus. I kept my eyes closed. 6 hours earlier, I had given birth to my son. Every part of my body still remembered it. The 16 hours of labor, the moment they placed him on my chest, the sound he made before he even had a name. And now a stranger in the doorway was rewriting that moment into something smaller. Then came the second voice. This one wasn't confused at all. "Finally," my mother-in-law said, stepping fully into the room like she'd been waiting outside the whole time. "Finally, everyone knows the truth." She wasn't shocked. She wasn't horrified. She sounded relieved, the way you sound when a secret you've been carrying finally gets to breathe, which meant she already knew, which meant this wasn't an accident, which meant a nurse hadn't stumbled onto a private note by chance. I opened my eyes. "Vivian," I said, "how long have you known?" She didn't flinch. If anything, she looked pleased that I was finally part of the conversation. "Since before the wedding," she said. "Marcus told me everything. I've just been waiting for the right moment to make sure he understood what it meant." That was the one that actually took my breath away. Not the secret itself, but the fact that my own husband had told his mother something this private, something I thought belonged only to us, years before I ever gave birth. I looked at Marcus. He looked like a man watching his own house catch fire in slow motion. "I told her," he said quietly, "because I didn't think it would ever matter. I didn't think anyone would use it like this." "It matters," Vivian said, "because of the trust. Not cruelty for its own sake, money." "What trust?" "My father's trust," she said. "The one that passes to biological grandchildren only. It's been that way since 1987. I didn't write the language, Renee. I just intend to honor it." For a moment, the room went very quiet. My son was asleep in the bassinet beside my bed, 7 pounds 4 ounces, a head full of dark hair he definitely didn't get from a donor catalog, and his own grandmother was standing 3 feet away explaining why he might not qualify as family. "You had a nurse announce this," I said slowly, "in my hospital room 6 hours after I gave birth because of a decades-old trust clause." "I had a nurse confirm it," Vivian corrected. "There's a difference." It was the smallest thing she said all morning, but it told me everything. She hadn't asked the nurse to check a chart. She'd asked her to make an announcement, timed for maximum damage in front of witnesses. Marcus stepped between us, his voice low. "Mom, I need you to leave. I'm simply protecting the family's interests. You're threatening my son's inheritance 6 hours after he was born." She smiled at him, the same calm, satisfied smile she'd worn since she walked in, and said the sentence that changed everything. "He's not really your family's blood, Marcus. Not by the terms that matter." I sat up in that hospital bed, Roman 4 line pulling at my arm, and I smiled back at her. Because what Vivian didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my phone had been recording from the moment she walked through that door. "I want to tell you, I planned that recording the moment the nurse spoke." I didn't. I'd started it 2 minutes earlier, out of habit, because Marcus and I had been documenting everything for the past 9 months. Every appointment, every conversation, every small cruelty Vivian had let slip since we first told her we were using a donor egg. This wasn't the beginning of a war. It was the middle of one I hadn't told her I was already fighting. "You've been saying things like this for months," I said. "Little comments, real grandchildren, blood that counts. I started recording in October, Vivian. This isn't the first conversation I have on file, it's just the loudest one." Her smile faltered, not gone, just cracked at the edges. "Recordings prove nothing," she said. "This is still a matter of trust language, and trust language is what a judge will read." "I know," I said. "So let's talk about what the trust actually says." I wasn't guessing, I'd already had it reviewed. "It says biological grandchildren," I continued. "It doesn't say genetically related. Those aren't the same thing in Colorado, and they haven't been since 2019. I carried him. I delivered him. Under state law, I am his legal mother the moment I gave birth, full stop, no exceptions, no donor disclosure required. There is no version of this where a court reads that trust and excludes him." Vivian's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time since she'd walked into the room, she looked less like a woman delivering a verdict and more like a woman realizing she'd read the wrong page of her own script. "That's not," she started and stopped. "It's exactly what the attorney told us," Marcus said. 3 months ago." That one landed on me too, not just Vivian. I turned to my husband, Roman 4 line forgotten. You already knew this would happen. I suspected, he said quietly. After the comments started, I talked to an estate attorney. I didn't want to scare you during the pregnancy. I wanted to have an answer ready in case she ever tried something like this. I didn't know whether to be angry that he hadn't told me or grateful that he had. I settled somewhere in between, filing it away for a conversation we'd need to have later, away from his mother's audience. But Vivian wasn't finished. She played the card she'd clearly been saving. The nurse who spoke to you, she said, straightening, regaining some of her composure. She didn't find that note by accident. I asked a friend on the hospital board to have someone check your chart the moment you were admitted. The room went cold in a different way this time. You had someone access my medical records, I said slowly, before I even gave birth. I wanted to be prepared. That's not preparation, Vivian. That's a HIPAA violation. That's a felony. This was the one that actually mattered because it wasn't about the trust anymore. Vivian had walked into a hospital room to win an inheritance argument and instead handed me evidence of a federal crime, recorded, time-stamped, with her own voice confirming she'd orchestrated it. Marcus's hand found mine. Renee. I heard her, I said. I have all of it. Vivian's face changed one final time, not anger, not shame. The particular quiet horror of someone realizing the story she thought she was telling had been rewritten out from under her while she was still speaking. You wouldn't, she said. I already reported it, I said. 20 minutes ago, while you were still talking. She never saw it coming, because she'd been so focused on the trust that she never noticed me texting the hospital's patient advocate from beneath my blanket while she monologued about blood and inheritance. The hospital opened an internal investigation within the week. The nurse who'd made the comment was placed on leave pending review, not out of cruelty, but because the paper trail Vivian left behind made it clear she'd been used as a pawn in something much larger than a chart note. Vivian herself was quietly, formally removed as a trustee of her father's estate 2 months later, not because a judge punished her for cruelty, but because the very document she'd tried to weaponize had a clause about trustees acting in bad faith and threatening a newborn's inheritance in a hospital room on tape, qualified. My son is 2 now. He has Marcus's stubbornness and my patience, and neither of those came from a donor catalog. Vivian sees him twice a year, supervised, at Marcus's insistence, and she has never once brought up the word biological again. I didn't win because I was lucky. I won because I'd already been building the case for 9 months before she ever opened her mouth in that hospital room. She thought she was delivering the final word. She was only reading her own confession out loud.